Every race fan has that one driver, the one that makes you care. Today, we're talking about how that one driver doesn't just make you a fan, they make you stay. You're listening to On Track with Noe. Hey everyone, I'm Noe, and welcome back to On Track with Noe. I'm super excited for today's episode because we're going to be talking about favorite drivers and why does a certain driver captivate us? Why do we choose our driver? How do we choose our driver? We're going to talk about all that today in today's episode. I wanted to share two stories of how I chose two of my favorite drivers. The first one was NASCAR, and then the second one will be IndyCar. So I'll start with NASCAR first. So, as I shared a few episodes ago, I got into racing through the movie Cars. And so naturally, I gravitated towards NASCAR first. And I started pulling for Dale Jr. He was one of my favorites, still is one of my favorites. And there's a funny story on how I started cheering for Dale Jr. So again, I'm a 10-year, probably 11-year-old kid, and I turn on the TV, and the first race of the season is the Daytona 500. They had qualifying the weekend before. So I remember getting home from church and turning on the TV, and literally the first car that comes up is a red number 8 Budweiser car. I was like, that's my driver. I have no idea why I picked that driver. I didn't even know what Budweiser was. My parents didn't drink or anything like that. So I was like, Budweiser. I don't know what that is, but this is a cool car. I don't know. Maybe I chose the red number 8 car of Dale Jr. because it reminded me of Lightning McQueen. Maybe. In any case, I started cheering on for Dale Jr. and the 8. And 2007 was not a good season. It was his last season with the 8 car. And of course, because Dale Jr. was sponsored by Budweiser, I remember that I could not wear any of the T-shirts or any of his merch to school because I would get sent home. Um, but I remember cheering him on and just learning more about him and learning how he was the son of a famous driver, Dale Sr. And Dale Earnhardt, he won 7 championships, and so I was like, wow, like Dale Jr. is his son. But I was intrigued by his story because Dale had not won a championship up to that point. Dale had not won as many races as his dad had won. But I think one of the things that really captivated or really made me interested in Dale Jr. was that he wasn't, he wanted to be his own person. He wasn't as concerned as the fans were. I think there were a lot of fans, even at that time, who were pushing him to, why aren't you like your dad? Why aren't you, winning all these races and championships? Dale Jr. is his own person. And I think it was very unfair to expect him to live up to his dad's expectations. I think it'd be unfair to really, expect any driver to live up to Dale Earnhardt's expectations. 7-time champion, 76 wins. Not a lot of drivers get that. As I started to know his story, I felt connected to him. And it's like he's wanting to be his own person. And that's what really intrigued me. And the next season was very awesome because Dale Jr. left his team to go to another team, Hendrick Motorsports, and he started driving the 88 Amp Energy National Guard Chevy. And I was excited about that. He had Mountain Dew on his car too, and I drank a lot of Mountain Dew when I was a kid. Probably not healthy, to be honest. But it was a lot of fun to cheer on, and I actually got to wear his merch to school now. I could actually wear Mountain Dew stuff or National Guard stuff, and so that was a lot of fun. But being a Dale Jr. fan was not easy. When Dale Jr. moved to the 88, he won 2 races in 2008. Actually, he won 3 if you count a qualifying race at Daytona. But after that, he went 4 years without winning a race in the Cup Series. And those were brutal. But I decided to stay loyal to him. Again, he's his own person. I wanted to follow this journey. I was like, I'm invested in Dale Jr. I want to follow him throughout his career, for the good times and the bad times. I knew there would be good times. Surely there would be some good times. It took a while, but he got a win in 2012, and then he ended up going almost a year and a half without another win. And here we go again. And then 2014 was a fun time to be his fan because he won the Daytona 500 for a second time. He won 3 other races. 2015, he won 3 races, and he actually won at Talladega. And I was there to witness that win. Uh, I'd actually had a choice to go either to my senior prom or go to Talladega, and I chose to go to Talladega. And that was the race that Dale Jr. won. And I just remember just the pure happiness of being there in person to celebrate with Dale Jr. I mean, the stands were shaking. Dale Jr. was and still is the most popular figure in NASCAR. And I just remember the whole stand shaking. I'm like, man, this place is going to come down. But Dale Jr., just seeing him win was so amazing. It's a memory that I hope to never forget. And I actually had an encounter with Dale Jr. in 2016. I wouldn't say a meeting because it was like one of those trackside things where they like rush him off. But I did get him to sign one of my diecasts. But I did have the honor of meeting Dale Jr. in 2017. And this is a fun story. So I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, visiting family. And they live about 20 minutes or so from Junior Motorsports, which is Dale Jr.'s shop up in Mooresville. And I remember I was like, I'd love to go see Dale Jr., maybe get to meet him. He has a podcast that he does on Tuesday. So I was like, I think that'd be a good time to catch him. So I remember calling up Junior Motorsports and was like, hey, is Dale Jr. be recording today? And the lady on the phone's like, he won't be in recording today or this week, so he's going to be out of town. I was like, that's okay. I still went and visited Junior Motorsports the next day, and let me tell you, wow, I was not expecting what was about to happen. So I walk right in, and I go into Junior Motorsports into the gift shop. And back in the day, his radio, you could see him, his little radio booth or his podcast booth, and he was in there. Dale Jr. was in the podcast booth recording a podcast. And his aunt was at the cash register of the store. And she was like, hey, would you like to meet Dale? He's almost done recording his podcast. I had no words. I was like, yeah, yeah. So I went back to my car, grabbed the little diecast car that I had, his Daytona 500 winning car. And just in time when I got back in, he was coming out. And I got to take a picture with him, and I got to take a selfie with him. And I was like, holy cow, I just met Dale Jr. And he was so nice. Like, he signed, my diecast, took a picture with me. But he was kind of a little rushed because he had to go to a meeting, which ended up being the meeting that he was having with Mr. Hendrick to announce or to let him know that he wanted to retire that season. So that was but that was really cool. And then I got to meet Dale again in 2023. It was at Talladega. So I had gone there. I had gotten tickets 2 days before from Toyota. I was not expecting to go to Talladega. I had no plans, but Toyota had given me some tickets. So I went to the race. After the race, I was like, I don't want to deal with traffic. Some of you who've been to races know how the traffic can be and all that. So I was like, I'm just going to walk around. And I remember taking a tour of Talladega and remember taking a tour of like where the TV booth was and where the TV personalities would come down after the race. So after the race, I walked down to the elevator and was patiently waiting. There was a few other people there. And then all of a sudden the elevator opens up and there he is. There's Junior. And so I was able to grab an updated selfie and I just told him how much I enjoyed the podcast. And again, he was a little bit rushed to get out of there, but just having those moments, it was like, wow, getting to meet your hero. It was so cool. So I'm a huge Dale Jr. fan. He's such an incredible ambassador for the sport of NASCAR. He's such a historian. I'm a history nerd. I love to learn about racing history and just anything history in general. And so just getting to hear all the interviews that Dale does, all the guests and that he brings on his podcast. If you haven't listened to it, the Dale Jr. download is a fantastic listen. I would highly recommend it. They sometimes bring in people from other sports or IndyCar. I don't think he's gotten a lot of Formula One. We did have Zach Brown last year as a guest. So if you want to learn more about Zach Brown and his story, Dale Jr.'s got a great episode about that. But he's such an ambassador. He owns a team. It's fun cheering for his Xfinity Series team, Junior Motorsports, and gotten to meet some of his drivers. And so he's got a great group behind him. I'm a big fan of the person that Dale Jr. is and the person that he's become. He's grown a lot since since I got to know about him in 2007, and I will always be a Dale Jr. fan for life. So that's my favorite NASCAR driver of all time. But now, last week we talked about IndyCar, and I mentioned that one of my favorites was Pato O'Ward, and he is my favorite IndyCar driver. I mentioned last week how my first encounter with a driver in IndyCar was Joseph Newgarden. I believe that Joseph Newgarden is such an incredible ambassador for IndyCar. He makes everyone feel so welcome. He is so fan friendly. He will stay after autograph sessions to sign for fans. And if I hadn't had that encounter with Joseph Newgarden when I went to my first IndyCar race, I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't be such a big IndyCar fan. Joseph Newgarden was such a good ambassador, and I was like, I want to come back. I want to see and cheer on Joseph, and so that's always a lot of fun. And but yeah, um, my favorite IndyCar driver currently is Pato O'Ward, and he is fun. So Pato O'Ward, I discovered him in 2018. Again, I went to my first IndyCar race at Barber Motorsports Park, and the IndyCar series were obviously there, but they also have a series kind of like F2 or F3 or in NASCAR, the Xfinity series, um, called the Indy Lights at the time. Now it's called Indy Next. And one of the drivers there that caught my attention was Patricio O'Ward. And I was like, oh, this is somebody I'd like to cheer for because I found out he's from Monterrey, Mexico. I have family that lives kind of close to Monterrey. So I was like, oh, we got that connection to Mexico. So I was like, oh, perfect. And I remember cheering him on that weekend, and he actually won the championship for Indy Next that year, which was fantastic. Um, and then I got to follow him in his journey. He moved to Arrow McLaren. Actually before that, there was an opportunity where he was maybe going to go into F1, but that kind of went away. So for 2020, he started driving for Arrow McLaren, and he's been there ever since. And I love Pato because he is very energetic. He has such an on-track aggression. Like, he is very aggressive in his driving style. He doesn't hold back. He's sliding the car around, and he has such amazing car control. I don't think there's many drivers in racing that have the car control that Pato O'Ward has. And Pato is just so amazing with his fans. I'm going to share a few stories about Pato. So I met Pato for the first time in person in 2022 at Barber Motorsports Park. Um, I remember the IndyCar autograph session that year was on a Saturday, and I remember going through the line, and I was so excited to meet Pato because I had never met him before, and I had followed him in his journey. And I went through the line, and Pato, obviously being from Mexico, speaks Spanish. I speak Spanish, so I talked to him in Spanish and told him, "Hey, my name's Noe, and so good to meet you." And I remember telling him this, and I did not tell this to any driver in the autograph session. Usually I'll, tell the drivers, hey, good luck, or it's good to see you, stuff like that. And I did that for all these drivers. When I got to Pato, for some reason, I didn't even think about it. I said, Pato, you're going to win the race tomorrow. And 24 hours later, Pato won the race. And I remember tagging him on social media, and he responded to my story. And I was like, oh, this is so cool, and that was such a special moment and all that. Another moment that I had with Pato was in 2023. I went to the Music City Grand Prix in Nashville, and I remember I could only be there the first 2 days, so I could only be there Friday and Saturday. I couldn't actually be there for race day. But I remember going through the autograph session on Friday and getting to take a picture with Pato and all that. He signed a little mini helmet that I had, and he was amazing. Again, very fan friendly. He remembers his fans. That's one of the things I love about Pato, is that he will actually remember his fans. He has a nickname for me and my friend Miguel, our producer of this show. He calls us Los Locos. So I love that, which means the crazy ones. We are crazy fans, or maybe I'm the crazy fan. I don't know. But I remember the next Saturday, I didn't have paddock access for the race in Nashville, so I was just kind of, just sitting in the stands and watched the whole qualifying and all that. Well, I remember after qualifying, and it was about time for me to go home. I had about 2 hour drive to get home, so it wasn't too bad. I was like, I better get going. And there was a bridge that goes over the track to get to, to other places around the track at the time, which is in downtown Nashville. And I just remember walking through the bridge after qualifying, me in my big Pato jersey, Pato hat, and everything, all papaya, McLaren. And all of a sudden, someone taps me on the shoulder and says something like, ¿Qué tal? Which means, what's up, basically in Spanish. And I look over my shoulder and it's Pato. And I mean, there's other Pato fans around me. Like, I'm not the only Pato Award fan on this bridge or walking out, but he was literally walking out from the paddock to go to the media center to do interviews. And he literally tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, hey, get down. So next thing you know, I'm like fumbling through my pockets trying to pull out my cell phone to get a picture with him. And we got the picture. And that was just such a special moment because it's like, again, Pato remembered me from all the encounters that we've had. And it's been so fun to follow his journey. Um, I think about, what makes a fan pick their driver. You think about it, is it their driving style? I like drivers that are aggressive, and Pato is definitely one of those. Personality. Pato's got a great personality. Check out his social media. This guy, he goes on a lot of adventures. Um, maybe you pull for a driver because of, they're an underdog. Maybe you like to pull for those who may not be as successful as the big teams or the big drivers. Maybe that's a reason that you pull for a certain driver. Maybe you have a connection to their nationality, like I do with Pato, being from Mexico. Or maybe there's a local connection. Maybe you pull for Joseph Newgarden because you live in Nashville, Tennessee. Or maybe you pull for drivers like, I'm trying to think of another IndyCar driver. You know, there's so many. Maybe you pull for Marcus Ericsson because you've got family or you've got roots from Sweden. So there's a lot of reasons you can choose a favorite driver. Again, maybe you choose a driver because you love how they're out there in social media and, just doing a bunch of TikTok trends or whatever. Maybe you love like some of the values that they have. Some of the maybe you love to keep up with their family. Maybe their family has a long lineage. Like I mentioned earlier, the Earnhardts, they have a long racing lineage. Maybe you like to pull for people who have that. Again, it varies from person to person, and there's no wrong reason why this driver is your favorite driver. They're your favorite driver because you have a connection to them. You know, you found your driver when wins and losses start to feel personal. And this is where I was going a few moments ago when I was talking about Pato. He came so close to winning the 2024 Indianapolis 500. He was 2 turns away, and he got passed by Joseph Newgarden, which, by the way, that was like, oh, I had mixed emotions because I like Joseph. Joseph is amazing, one of my favorites, but I also love Pato. So that was an interesting day. But I just remember, and then seeing him get out of his car and be so emotional, you could tell how much that race meant to him, and just how much it meant for him to be so close, but yet at the same time so far. He's come so close to winning that race, and Pato Award is going to get that Indianapolis 500 win sooner rather than later, and I would love to be there to see him win that race in person. It may happen next year, 2026. I remember Dale Jr. one time. This is back when he had gone on almost 3 years without a win. He was leading at Charlotte in the Coca-Cola 600. He had played the strategy right. He was up at the front. He had a great restart, and he runs out of fuel with a quarter mile to go in this race, and he loses it. That was such a devastating win. I remember even when I was a kid pulling for Dale Jr. when the first year when he was in the 88. he was going to win a race at Richmond and Kyle Busch spun him out and wrecked him. Oh, I held a grudge against Kyle Busch for a long time after that. But that's when you tell that that's your driver. When you become so passionate that you care about their wins, you care about their losses, and you just become invested in him. So again, this is again very personal. You choose your driver for whatever reason you want. There's no right or wrong reason. I did go on social media a few days ago, a few weeks ago, and just asked people and put up a question: what makes a driver your driver? And we had some responses. So Cameron on TikTok said, a driver that is consistent during a race, but outside of a race, kind and doesn't let the fame consume them. I love when people are down to earth. I think that's a very good point. I think people connect better with drivers, or really with anybody in general, who is just down to earth and is authentic, isn't pretending to be someone else, and for drivers, I love that she mentioned that they're kind and doesn't let the fame consume them. Pato Award and Dale Jr., they're very popular drivers, but they're also very humble, and they, love to interact with the fans when it's possible. Obviously, when they're so popular, you can't take pictures with every fan. You can't sign every autograph, but they make the effort. Like Pato has his own shop. He does fan promotions where he gives out tickets to fans who buy merch from his shop. Like these drivers, they're doing things to reach their fans, and I love that. And of course, you want a driver that's good. That's not going to be someone that always finishes in the back. Although you may want to root for an underdog. Again, that's your choice. Leah on Instagram said, ultimately, their leadership abilities, personality, sense of humor, and how well they interact with the fans. Again, fan interaction is very important. You can't be a stuck-up driver and expect to have a huge fan base. You have to be very personable. I love how she mentioned leadership abilities. I think about my two favorite drivers, Dale Jr., huge leader in the industry in NASCAR, very influential. Pato Award, again, he's very outspoken, and he's basically the leader of Arrow McLaren as far as drivers go. He's a veteran of that team, and he has a lot of racing experience. Of course, personality, sense of humor. I mean, you want someone that's going to make you laugh too. So I love that. I love that she included that. So kind of to end off this episode, again, you might fall in love with the sport at first. Again, it may be through the F1 movie, maybe through Drive to Survive. Maybe you just turn on the race. Maybe you go to a race in person. Maybe that's a future episode we need to have, the in-person experience and how that's different from watching it on TV. But it's the drivers who keep you coming back. And so I would say if you want to get into racing, find a driver to root for, and follow their journey and stay loyal to them, because it's so rewarding when you see a driver and their journey and you see them work hard towards a goal, and then when they achieve it, it is amazing. So I'd love to hear from you. Who are your favorite drivers? How did that driver become your favorite? I'd love for you to share that with me. So you can tag me on Track with Noe on Instagram, X, or TikTok. And yeah, it's going to be so much fun to hear. I can't wait to hear why a certain driver is your favorite driver, and see all the different drivers from all series. Maybe you have a favorite IMSA driver. Again, I don't know a lot about IMSA or other series other than F1, IndyCar, NASCAR, but I'd love to learn about it. And maybe you can recommend a driver from those series that I can follow so that I can become more invested in those series. But favorite drivers, again, they keep you invested in the sport, maybe give you some heartbreak, but man, you get to experience the highs with them, and that is so rewarding. So, yeah, again, share your favorite drivers on Track with Noe, and we'll see you soon for another episode of On Track with Noe.